What the Heck is Happening in HR is happy to welcome Linda Burhans. Linda is the gal who cares for the caregivers with love, laughter, and lessons learned. Author, speaker, radio show host Linda Burhans is ever awed by the strength, resilience, and commitment of the caregivers she meets and seeks to remind them that they're not alone. Help is available, and it's okay to accept that help. Caregivers that seek to take on everything on their own often decline in health. The most important thing she teaches is that caregivers need and deserve the time and space to take care of themselves. Whether you read her books or meet Linda in person, you will quickly realize that she truly lives by her mission to acknowledge and appreciate all caregivers as they care for those who cannot care for themselves. You can join her on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on WTAN 106.1 FM or 1340 AM in the Tampa Bay area. You can tune in live on YouTube at Connecting Caregivers Radio or live on Facebook at Linda Burhans. Podcasts of every show and other resources can be found at lindaburhans.com. Linda, I'm so glad you're here today to chat with us. And I am wanting to make sure people understand that you have that amazing conference each year as well. In fact, I think it's twice a year, and I want to be sure that people sign up for it. I have learned so much from it. Thanks for being here today. For our podcast disclaimer, please visit the episode description. Thanks so much for coming back to What the Heck is Happening in HR. And today we have Linda Burhans, who is here talking about caregiving. Our first segment talked about what happens when suddenly we're a caregiver. Something has happened, and here we are, the new job on top of some of the other jobs. And for many of us, we are continuing to work, and trying to move forward. And so, Linda, you gave us some tips as to what to do for us as caregivers to educate ourselves and how to ask for help and have some acceptance around ourselves and what was happening. And I love the fact that you even shared about we have to acknowledge who we are in the
Yeah.
midst of all of that. But help us understand, how do we let our employer know? Do we let our employer know? How do we get help from them? How do we get help from our coworkers?
Okay, number one, yes, you let your employer know. Because probably 50% of the people you work with are in a caregiving experience somewhere.
It's really growing fast, isn't it?
Right, might be part-time. Maybe you just go help mom on the weekend, or whatever it is. We need to discuss it. Probably your boss is a caregiver before, and he's not talking about it either.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange when I pay my bills, when we used to, not anymore, but when you used to write a check and put it in the envelope,
Mm-hmm.
when I would mail it to the person, whoever I was paying the bill to, I put my business card in there. I figured they send me all their stuff. I'm going to send them mine.
I love that.
And one day a girl called me and she said, "Oh my God." She said, "I was at work. I take care of both of my parents. I was having a breakdown. I started crying." She goes, "And if my boss sees me crying, I'm going to get fired." She said, so the girl next to me was, "Honey, just chill out." She said, "Go in the bathroom, I'll answer your phone. Go wash your face, get yourself together and come back." When she came back to her desk, my business card was on her desk because her girl that sat next to her was opening up the bills and there was my business card.
Wow.
Well, it just opened a conversation and then a good resource for her.
Mm-hmm.
But, I used to work as a corporate trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go into companies and talk about stress in the workplace, hard to work with employees or whatever. And I used to speak at a very large company, and I had been there maybe 5 or 6 times. One time I talked about senior living options. Another time I talked about something else with the senior business.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going back there and I was going to speak about mindful meditation. And there were about 60 people in the room. And most of them came up to me and said, "We didn't come here. We don't care about your mindful meditation, Linda. Can you tell us the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Oh. Can you tell us about an elder care attorney?" I said to their employer, "Look, they're starving for this.
Yeah.
They're sneaking into my class,
Wow.
Bring that education to the workforce." And a lot of these larger companies, all right, at the company, they have a gym, they have daycare for children. Why don't they have adult daycare?
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't they have adult daycare? I could bring mom to work with me. I could go down at lunch and see her if I want to.
Yep.
She'd be socialized and be out there. Do you know how much that would bring morale up?
Yeah.
I,
And
I've been
retention.
I've been trying to contact people in Disney about it. Disney, they have you can leave your dog off for the day. Why
Yeah.
can't you take mom to the park in the morning and then let her go to adult daycare for a couple hours?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We need to think about this and we need to have these conversations because if you're anxious all day because you don't want your employee to know, and if you're sneaking out the back door because you got to take mom to the doctor or something, or if you just can't concentrate, that's not good for anybody.
Right. And so tired because you didn't sleep for 3
Yeah.
nights. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just so distracted.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't learn. I guess you can certainly learn, but it's hard to redirect yourself.
Yeah. But if we're open about it in the workplace, why not? We could. There's one employer I know. What he started doing for his caregivers is job sharing.
Mm. Tell me how that
So,
works. Yeah.
all right, so I'm taking care of my mom, and my girlfriend, who sits next to me, is taking care of her dad or whatever, and we both have responsibilities and everything. So between the two of them, because they have the same job, it's a company where they have a lot of people that do the same kind of thing.
Mhm.
Between the two of them, they decide who's working this week and who's not.
Hmm.
Because I got to take mom to the doctor, or I got to do this, and I got to do that.
Hmm.
Well, they're getting so much more productivity. Both of their parents are being taken care of, and nobody's sneaking around.
Right. Right. Is there a different stigma for taking care of like our parents or compared to taking care of a baby?
Well, I don't know. First of all, everybody rejoices in a baby.
Mhm.
It's all happy stuff. The baby's it's not so rejoicing when you see an elder person
Mhm.
that's suffering or that's going through something.
Mhm.
But I think the more conversation we have about it, because it's going to happen,
Mhm.
no doubt about it. Years ago, Rosalind Carter said, "You either are a caregiver, you have been a caregiver, you will be a caregiver, or someone will be taking care of you." And so I always tell everybody it's an equal opportunity employer.
It really is. It has no boundaries, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then there was a time years ago I had custody of my grandchildren. Well, now we go for another little stigma there, right?
Right.
So I started a support group at their grammar school, and the name of it was called PASTA, Parenting a Second Time Around,
Oh,
for grandparents taking care of their grandchildren, because I didn't know what Xbox was or Common Core Math or
right.
anything.
Right. Right.
So
I'm still hanging up on your idea of why aren't there adult daycares near corporations or part of
come
corporations. So,
on.
my mom goes to an adult daycare and she has the best time. I wish I had her social life. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
the parties and,
Yeah.
such joyfulness that she has. She goes to, for those in the Tampa Bay area, TLC over in Oldsmar,
Oh,
and
I love TLC.
they do such a wonderful job with my mom. I some days I have to talk her into coming back home with me, and I'm like, "They're not doing sleepovers yet, but you guys let me know if you do."
you know, they're so accommodating there. And a friend of mine decided he wanted to bring his mom there, and she wasn't so cool on the idea. So I went there and met her there, and we told her that I worked there,
Ah,
but I needed her to help me there with the other people because I'm on the road a lot.
right. Oh,
In the beginning, it was 2 days a week, and before you knew it, it was 5 days a week.
yeah. When we were first going, she did not want to go, and in fact, I had to called Tom who
Yeah,
runs that, and I had to cancel out, and I felt so bad, it was like 3 times, I'm like, "She won't go, and she doesn't wanna leave the
right.
house and go." So, then we were out and about, and I learned not to ask, and I said, "You can sit in the car, but I need to go in here and look at this place. I wanna see
Yeah,
it." And she's like, "Well, I'm not gonna sit in the car." I'm like, "Okay,
exactly.
then come in." And 2 of the other ladies were so wonderful. They took her by the hands and sat her in a chair because they were doing chair exercises, and I hadn't even stopped Tom was still introducing me to people, and she's sitting down doing exercises, wondering why she had to leave for the day, and then we never looked back. I mean, that was
Yeah,
that was it, but the joy that and the freedom for doing things like my podcast here. I'm in the recording studio at USF. It couldn't happen without a
Yeah,
place like that.
right. And you have no worries about your mom.
Right.
No
Absolutely not.
worries.
Yeah. And so
So
how do
employers
we
need
do
to
it?
think about that.
Yeah, how do we help that conversation come alive with employers and with our legislation? I mean, how do we do that?
We open our mouths. We open our mouths. We have to start talking about it, and we have to talk about it out loud.
Yeah.
We have an aging population, and we're living so much longer than we ever did.
Mhm.
We were never prepared for this.
Yeah.
And the amount of people we have right now, we need to manage it, and we can manage it if we start the conversations. So anybody that's listening to this, go talk to your boss. Play this podcast back for them
Mhm.
and say, maybe this is just a conversation, and maybe they just have not thought about that.
Mhm.
Maybe your boss is tied up in their own caregiving situation and can't think straight either.
Right. Right. And we do have people who use this podcast at the start of staff meetings to
Yeah, it's
give them
perfect.
conversations. So what you suggested will be happening. I know because that's how they use it in order to be sure that there's something that they should be talking
Relevant.
about. So I'm hoping that that resonates throughout the land about
Yeah.
what we need to be able to talk about. I mean, candidly, does the discussion around our current president help or hurt the whole situation?
To tell you the truth, I don't discuss politics about caregiving or anything with my clients
Okay.
because
Yeah, and I'm not
I,
trying to get into the
yeah, no,
politic. I'm
just
just
because
yeah.
I think they have so much on their mind
Yeah.
that just adds one more thing to their plate.
Yeah, nobody came out without gray hair ever as a president,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I was just saying to my grandson yesterday, I wouldn't want that job.
Yeah, I mean, it is there's no
You know,
doubt that it
yeah.
is. I just I was thinking about it last night with so much conversation, and I'm just like, I don't know if this helps or hurts. I don't know if it puts us all back in the caves going, "Let's not talk about it anymore," or if it brings it out saying,
I
"Let's
think we
have it."
have to talk about it now.
And I love Rosalind Carter's, that
Yeah,
saying, that quotation she had. I just think it's so true.
yeah, yeah. And like I said, it all depends on how you look at it and what your perspective is.
Yeah,
Caregiving can be a privilege. Caregiving can be a gift. It
yeah,
really can. It really can.
yeah.
I had a woman call me recently, and she said to me, "My mother was the best mother in the world until I was 10 years old, and then my mother got into a car accident and she got addicted to opiates."
Mm, mm,
She said, and then she was the worst mother in the world. So as soon as I was old enough, I got out of the house. She said, fast forward 25 years later, my mother has Alzheimer's and I have to care for her. She said, and she's angry and I'm angry, and how do you care for someone that didn't care for you?
mhm.
And any suggestions I was making was not working. And one morning I was like, dear God, please help me here.
Yeah.
So I called her up and I said, Julie, tell me about a really special time with your mother.
Mhm.
And she said, you know what? When I used to come home from school, my mother used to brush my hair, and she still has long hair. And I said, do you think you could go to your mother and say, Mama, nobody ever brushed my hair the way you did. Can you brush my hair? And she
Mm.
said to me, you are pushing it, Linda. But now, for the past few months, every afternoon at 4 o'clock, her mother brushes her hair. And she said, I get to be the little girl. She gets to be the mom.
Mm.
And we're trying to forget about the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, it is
So,
a real day-to-day issue, and it is
yeah.
something we need to bring to the forefront, and I know I chased you down to get you on this podcast. You are
So,
one busy woman, but I want to scream it from the rooftops because not just the education you give us, Linda, but the enthusiasm around doing our job, the respect you give, and the real applicable tips that just show up right when we need them. And we get so many of those through your Connecting Caregivers conference. It's happening in November again, the 12th, 13th, and 14th, correct?
yes, and registration will be open October 1st.
And how will people register for that?
ConnectingCaregiversConference.com.
Oh, excellent. And are you able to announce your big sponsor?
Oh, yeah. And our diamond sponsor for this next conference is AARP.
And that's why it's free.
Yeah, for all our sponsors. We have other
Mhm.
sponsors too, but They're our diamond sponsor, and they're going to help promote us, which is fabulous because we're just going to reach more people. And
Absolutely.
AARP is a big employer.
Yes, they are, and they have a lot of reach, so
Yeah,
congratulations on that. That just
thank you.
is amazing, and again, thank you so much for being on with us. I hope you'll come back later on and share even more with us.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me. God bless you, caregivers. Remember, you're not alone.